I found this story where it shouldn't have been, and once you hear it, it doesn't let go.
Story 1. We found the hatchery under the jungle. The first thing we found was not a dinosaur. It was a child-sized shoe, half buried in the mud. The storm had ripped open half the island, tearing trees from cliffs and exposing old concrete sectors. By sunrise, our team moved through wreckage with rifles and cutting torches. Mission: recover hard drives. I'm Mr. D, and you are listening to Mr. D Stories. Please like and subscribe to hear more. What waited beneath that island was not dead, not buried, and not sleeping. 4 of us entered the breach: me, Rains, Saul, and Mercer. The island felt wrong. Not a roar, not a scream. A deep living vibration under our boots, as if something enormous shifted below. The tunnel led to a narrow, wet service corridor. Red emergency lights flickered. Power was still on. The deeper we went, the warmer it got. The jungle air vanished behind us, replaced by damp heat and a smell that made every instinct want to turn around. Rotting meat, wet soil, and something reptilian, sharp and ancient. Mercer found the hatchery doors first, steel panels forced open from the inside. Beyond them was a chamber so huge our lights couldn't reach the far wall, filled with shattered incubators, cables like vines, cracked eggs the size of helmets, long smear marks across the floor where something heavy had been dragged through pools of old blood. Saul whispered that the nursery still had climate control. He was right. The air was thick, hot, alive. Someone designed that place to keep eggs warm, and it was still doing its job. Rains laughed once, but it was fear, not humor. He aimed his light at the far side. Tell me those are old bones. They weren't. Some were fresh, human. Ribs split open. A boot with the foot still in it. A spine bent backward between 2 overturned units. The team went quiet after that. We spread out, following the drag marks between broken glass. That was when I realized many of the eggs had not shattered. They had hatched. Something had pushed its way out from within. Something many times. Then the generator lights dipped, and for 1 second the whole hatchery sank into darkness. In that second, something breathed beside me, not far away, beside me. The lights returned with a buzzing flash, and I spun so fast my shoulder hit the glass. Nothing was there, only steam, my own breath, and a row of empty incubation cradles. Rocking slightly. Mercer called for everyone back to the center. No one answered. He shouted again. Still nothing. Then Saul screamed. We ran toward the sound and found his flashlight rolling. Blood was splashed across the wall, bright and fresh, but Saul was gone. The great tunnel was too small for anything human, yet something had dragged him into it. Fast. Mercer wanted to seal the chamber and abort. Rains wanted the hard drives. I wanted out. What decided it for us was the next sound. A high clicking chirp from the incubation rows, answered by another from behind us, then another overhead in the ventilation lattice. Not one animal, several, small enough to move through the grates, smart enough to stay out of light. We backed toward the control station while those clicks followed us from the dark, circling, testing. Rains reached the terminal first and slammed a hand onto the panel. Miraculously, one monitor flickered on. Most of the system was corrupted, but one live feed remained active, a camera aimed down a lower tunnel. At first I thought. The image was frozen, then something in the shadows blinked. A giant eye, vertical pupilled and wet, filling half the frame. It was watching the camera. Then the feed moved as something enormous shifted forward into the dim emergency light. All muscle and scales and scarred hide, bigger than anything that should have survived. Behind it, half hidden in the heat fog, were smaller shapes clustered around bones. Not offspring anymore. A pack. Mercer stepped back from the screen whispering, "That thing nested down there." And then the clicking around us stopped. The silence was worse. Every horror story tells you the noise is the danger, but that is wrong. Predators make noise. Silence means they are close enough not to need it. Rains turned his light toward the ceiling. Just as the first one dropped, it hit him from above like a knife wrapped in muscle. Mercer fired twice, the muzzle flashes revealing fast gray bodies darting between incubators. Lean shapes with sickle claws and narrow jaws slick with blood. One vanished under the glass row. Another launched at Mercer's chest and drove him backward into a broken incubator. I ran. I am not proud of that, but I ran, following the map in my head, toward the lower access tunnel because instinct told me the smaller ones were driving me somewhere, hurting me, toward the thing in the camera feed. The tunnel doors stood open. Warm air rolled out, thick enough to feel breathed. Inside was the final chamber, deeper. Underground. lined with bones stacked almost neatly along the walls. At the center rose a mound of nest material, cables, leaves, cloth, and human remains fused together into something like a throne. On it lay several unhatched eggs, larger than the others, their shells trembling, and behind them, slowly lifting its head from the dark, was the mother. She did not rush me. That made it worse. She just rose and watched, ancient and patient, while blood from Rains's body still dripped from the jaws of one of the smaller hunters behind me. I understood then what the hatchery had become. Not a ruin, not a graveyard, a kingdom. The island had not abandoned this place. It had fed it. I raised my rifle. But before I could fire, the first egg cracked, then another, and in that wet splitting sound, in that room where something long extinct was beginning again, I realized the worst truth of all. We had not discovered the hatchery. We had opened it. Our next story is story 2, the last boat left without us. Watch that too and let us know which one do you like. Story 2, the last boat left without us. By the time we reached the shoreline, only 2 of us were left. The island had become a black mirror of mud, blood, and moving shadows. Mercer had died in the hatchery, Rains torn apart before my eyes. Whatever happened to Saul in those maintenance tunnels was worse than death. I could have sworn I heard him screaming somewhere behind the trees, always at the same distance, never closer, never farther, like the island itself was replaying him. The only person still alive with me was Lena, the pilot. She found me stumbling out of the breach alone, covered in blood that wasn't mine, when I told her the nursery was active and something huge was nesting below. She did not argue. She just handed me a flare gun and said the dock was 2 miles east. We ran under a sky the color of bruised steel, hacking through wet vines, slipping down gullies full of runoff while the jungle screamed around us. Sometimes it was distant crashing through the trees, sometimes the clicking calls of smaller hunters answering one another from different directions. Once, something massive moved parallel to us. Lena kept saying not to look back. I kept looking back. Every time I did, I saw eyes, not one pair, many, low to the ground, weaving between roots, vanishing when the lightning flashed. We found the first body near an overturned supply jeep half sunk in a drainage ditch. One of the dock crew. His throat had been opened so cleanly it looked surgical. The mud around him was crisscrossed with tracked small 3-toed prints layered over larger ones, as if something swift had circled him while something heavier waited nearby. That was when Lena said the words I had been refusing to think. They're driving us. She was right. The pack from the hatchery was not attacking head-on. Every time we tried to cut south toward open terrain, a scream or movement pushed us back east, toward the shoreline, toward the only exit left on the island. We reached the old extraction dock at dusk, and for one beautiful second I thought we had made it. The platform was still there, half collapsed but standing. Tied to the far post was the emergency launch, a narrow storm boat built for 6 people. Then lightning lit the whole bay and showed us what the dark continued. The boat's hull had been ripped open from below, peeled back like metal foil. Bloody drag marks led from the water to the dock planks, where deep claw grooves gouged the wood in long parallel lines. Lena whispered, "Something got here first. We should have run then." Instead, we searched for the marine radio in the dock office, because hope makes fools of dying people. Inside, the place smelled of diesel, mildew, and old salt. The emergency beacon was still blinking. The radio still had power. I grabbed the mic and started broadcasting coordinates, screaming that the island was active. The preserve was not dead. There were live animals everywhere. Static answered. Then a voice came through so sharply I nearly dropped the set. "Hold position," the man said. "Rescue approaching from North Channel at first light." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But Lena was staring not at the radio, but through the office window toward the tree line. I turned and saw them, at least 6 of the smaller predators, standing in the rain at the edge of the jungle, unmoving, their narrow bodies silhouetted by lightning, watching the dock as if waiting for permission. One stepped forward, then stopped. Another moved to the side. They were not charging. They were closing lanes, herding again. The flare gun in my hand suddenly felt ridiculous. Lena said we had to use the dock lights, flood the beach, expose them, maybe scare them back long enough to swim for the reef marker and cling there until dawn. It was desperate, stupid, and better than waiting to be eaten. She hit the power switch and the floodlights roared on around the bay, washing the storm in hard white light. For 1 second the shoreline was empty. Then the island moved. Creatures burst from every angle, small hunters from the brush, Something broad backed from beneath the dock and farther up the beach, emerging from the curtain of rain like a machine built from teeth and muscle, the largest predator. Its head rose above the others. Its jaws were scarred white. One dead, I reflected. The floodlight like cracked glass while the other fixed on us. The pack parted for it. That was the truth we had missed. They had never been trying to kill us for themselves. They had been keeping us alive, steering us, delivering us to the shoreline, because the thing that owned this island hunted where the jungle met the sea. Lena fired first, 3 bursts from her rifle straight into the pack. One animal dropped, the rest scattered sideways. The large one did not even flinch. It lunged across the dock in a blur of wet scales and force, hitting the office wall so hard the whole room shuddered. Glass exploded inward. I fired the flare gun directly into its face. The red burst lit its jaws from within like a furnace, and for the first time it recoiled, crashing back from the doorway with a scream that drowned. Out the storm. Lena grabbed my arm and dragged me through the rear exit toward the fuel platform. Shouting that we could ignite the reserve tanks and take everything with us, we made it halfway. Then one of the smaller predators came out from beneath the dock and took her by the leg. She hit the board screaming, stabbing at its eye with a knife, while 2 more shapes raced in from the left. I turned back. I almost reached her. Then the large one landed between us. Up close it was worse than any fossil, any file. This was not a monster. That would have been easier. It was an animal, perfect at what it did, breathing hard through blood-wet teeth while the island thundered around it. Lena looked at me through the rain and shouted, "Run." I did. I hate that I did, but I did. I hit the fuel switch as I leapt from the platform, and the explosion tore the dock apart behind me, in a tower of orange fire that sent burning wood and dinosaur screams across the bay. I woke on the reef line at sunrise, half drowned and alone, clinging to wreckage. Rescue came 2 hours later. They asked where the others were. I told them the island took them. I told them not to go inland. Then, as they wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and turned the boat toward open water, I looked back one last time. Something stood at the edge of the jungle above the ruined dock, huge and unmoving, watching us leave as if it knew the island had fed well enough for one night. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to Bloody Chapter for more stories that follow you long after the silence returns. And if anyone ever tells you an island full of dinosaurs is empty, pray they are lying, because the truth is much worse. It may simply be waiting for night.